but war began with IBM when in 1980 they introduced their own PC. Apple then went to Xerox PARC and used their GUI for future products. Apple then released the Apple III and the Lisa, which both failed, but now was the time that Apple would release the computer which would change the way people saw computers forever. On January the 24th, 1984, Steve Jobs unveiled the Macintosh to a huge audience which responded with thunderous applause which lasted for over a minute. It had a Motorola 68K chip and 128 kilobytes RAM, and it introduced the mouse and the Apple GUI to the main public. It was marketed as the computer for the rest of us, referring to non-DOS users. It sold well at the time. In 1985, Jobs was forced out of his own company by board member John Sculley.
Every once in a while, a revolutionary product.
वहाँ ऑफिस में बॉस बैंड बजाता है और यहाँ ये सर पे तबला।
चिल ना, देख जितना बड़ा जिग होता है।
It's been 40 years since
I guess there was some copyright issue on the earlier link. अभी दूसरा एक वीडियो जो है हिस्ट्री के ऊपर वो आप सब लोगों के साथ शेयर करता हूं। पहला वाला वीडियो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है, देखने लायक है, लेकिन कॉपीराइट के इशू की वजह से वो शेयर नहीं हो पा रहा है। सो व्हाट आई विल डू राइट नाउ, आई विल शो यू दिस वीडियो एंड आफ्टर दिस विल बी हैविंग द फैक्ट्री टूर एंड द अदर वीडियोस। जो पहला वाला लेक्चर जो कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ, जो कॉपीराइट की वजह से बंद हो गया, उसे मैं ग्रुप पे शेयर कर दूंगा, आप जैसे टाइम मिले वैसे देख सकते हो। राइट, चलिए आएगा सब लोग, आएगा सब लोग वापस। इज एवरीवन बैक? पहले वाला लेक्चर जो है मैं ग्रुप पे पोस्ट करता हूं, ग्रुप पे पोस्ट करने के बाद देख लीजिए।
Since Apple was first founded, and now it's one of the most popular brands in technology. But do you want to... It's been 40 years since Apple was first founded, and now it's one of the most popular brands in technology. But do you want to know how it all started? My name is Martin Noble. Let's go and see the history of Apple. Let's go back to April the 1st, 1976. Computers were as big as the size of a room back in those days. This was the day Apple was founded by 42-year-old electronics worker Ronald Wayne and mid-20s college dropouts Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who both had a vision of changing the way how people viewed computers. They both wanted to make computers small enough for people to easily use in their homes and offices. All three worked at Atari at the time, and thus the first Apple logo was created, depicting Isaac Newton and his gravity experiment. The second Apple logo was the rainbow apple, and that shape is now used as Apple's present logo. Together, Jobs and Woz created the Apple I, which only sold as a circuit board and did not come with a keyboard or case. Ronald Wayne left 12 days after the founding of Apple and sold his shares to Jobs and Woz for $800. This was partly due to Jobs' arrogant and narcissistic personality, which made him have a hard time working with him. Apple gained just enough sales to start building the Apple II. Introduced in 1977, compared with the Apple I, it was greatly improved and redesigned with a built-in keyboard and case, along with floppy disk drives. But war began with IBM when in 1980 they introduced their own PC. Apple then went to Xerox PARC and used their GUI for future products. Apple then released the Apple III and the Lisa, which both failed, but now was the time that Apple would release the computer which would change the way people saw computers forever. On January the 24th, 1984, Steve Jobs unveiled the Macintosh to a huge audience which responded with thunderous applause which lasted for over a minute. It had a Motorola 68K chip and 128 kilobytes RAM, and it introduced the mouse and the Apple GUI to the main public. It was marketed as the computer for the rest of us, referring to non-DOS users. It sold well at the time. In 1985, Jobs was forced out of his own company by board member John Sculley due to a power struggle. All of the board sided with Sculley. In the same year, Woz left Apple along with some members of the original Macintosh team. Jobs then went on to buy Pixar from George Lucas, director of Star Wars, and Jobs also founded a company called Next. The Next Cube did not sell well when it was released. In 1987, Apple released the Macintosh 2, the first Mac to have color graphics. Other variants of the Macintosh were also released, including the Mac LC, standing for low cost, and the SE, standing for system expansion. In the early 90s, Apple decided to give it a shot at making a portable Mac. The first time they failed horribly with the Macintosh Portable. It was anything but portable. It was so heavy and not convenient, but Apple got it right the next time with the PowerBook 100. The Apple vs IBM battle continues, not only in sales, but in advertising.
This is a Macintosh personal computer. This is an ordinary PC. This is the world's easiest personal computer. This is an ordinary PC.
And now Apple's losing the game thanks to Windows 3.0's new GUI. The response was 3 new Mac lines, Quadra, Centris, and Performer. Now this tactic will later bite Apple horribly. In 1994, Apple partnered up with IBM and started developing PowerPC processors, replacing the 68K processors. The Power Macintosh line was a direct result of this. Now, Apple has been overproducing with computers named by numbers from 1400 to 9600. The overproduction has resulted in Apple losing money every year, as well as due to the fact that more people are flocking over to Windows 95 with its ability to connect to the internet. Even the most simple question could not be answered: which Mac should you get? In 1997, Apple CEO Gil Amelio had no choice and decided to purchase Next. As a result, Steve Jobs returned to the company as iCEO. Microsoft then entered into a partnership with Apple, giving them $150 million to get itself back on their feet. Most of the numbered Mac products were abolished under Jobs' control. In July 1998, Jobs and Jonathan Ive will save Apple and secure Apple's legacy. And with that, the iMac was released. It was designed to stand out from the beige and black competition, and once again, Apple released a product with massive applause. It was easy to use, easy to connect to new internet, had USB ports, and Apple began to once again dominate the computer market. Apple also started phasing out their beige products, replacing them with eye-catching computers, such as the Power Mac G3 Blue and White. 1 year later, the iBook, Apple's first consumer laptop, was released. It was the first Apple laptop which came with a Wi-Fi card. This was the beginning of Apple's consumer line of Apple laptops, which eventually separated into the MacBook and MacBook Air. In March 2001, Apple introduced macOS X. Its aqua design was impressive for the time. However, the main problem was that it was slow and it lacked some important features, and there was barely any software for it. The second release, 10.1, was significantly faster and had more support. The current OS X release is 10.11 El Capitan. In that same year, Steve Jobs introduced the iPod. It sold well due to the fact that it was simple to use compared to other MP3 players at the time, and it was the right size. This was one of the first products of Apple's digital hub strategy, which included iMovie and iTunes. The only problem was that it could not work with Windows computers at the time. The iPod then evolved to many types, including Nano, Touch, and Shuffle. One other introduction was the Apple Retail Store. It had many key features such as the Genius Bar, and you could test Macs before you potentially buy them. In the early 2000s, Apple switched from CRT screens to LCDs, and Apple's consumer products began to turn white, and their professional line turned aluminum. By 2006, Apple made the switch from PowerPC to Intel chips. The Digital Hub gets a new addition with Apple introducing the iPhone at Macworld 2007. Nobody knew how much it would impact the world 9 years on. The iPhone kicked off the smartphone market, and nowadays you'll see people with an iPhone or Android in their pocket. This is Apple's third most popular product, which increased Apple's market share. The iPod Touch was also introduced that year, and it was very popular for young people who wanted a new iPhone look-alike. iTunes also had a huge impact on society, with up-and-coming artists able to share their music in new ways never before. Nowadays, people now use cheap music streaming software such as Spotify. In 2010, Apple introduced the iPad, which was designed to be the middle product between a smartphone and a computer. In 2011, Jobs became very weak because in 2004 he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and his cancer was reaching his final stages. And after the introduction of iCloud, he eventually resigned as CEO on August 2011, with Tim Cook taking over his directives. Jobs remained at Apple as chairman of the board, and he worked every day until his death on October 5th, 2011. On Apple's website, they showed this to pay respects. Many also left flowers in Apple retail stores at the time. Although Apple no longer innovates as much, the marks that Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Johnny Ive, and countless others have left on the world has greatly improved society and made our lives much easier. So there you have it, the history of Apple 40 years on.
थोड़ा बहुत हिस्टोरिक व्यू समझ में आया?
Grammarly helps make your writing clear and concise, no matter where you are. Compose a cover letter that stands out.
थोड़ा बहुत हिस्ट्री समझ में आया?
Flawless writing and compelling word choice. Inspire your team with a presentation free of errors in spelling, punctuation.
थोड़ा बहुत हिस्ट्री समझ में आया क्या? हाँ या ना? तो मैं जो बोल रहा था, तीसरा पार्टनर, तीसरा फाउंडर जो था स्टीव जॉब की, उसकी बनती नहीं थी, इसलिए उसने अपना शेयर जो है स्टीव जॉब को बेच दिया। उस वक्त उसने अपना शेयर, जो कंपनी में तीनों लोग साथ में स्टार्ट तो हुए, स्टार्ट होने के बाद 12 दिन के अंदर तीसरा पार्टनर जो है वो कंपनी छोड़कर चला गया, रोनाल्ड वेन। और जो वो छोड़कर गया, उसने अपना हिस्सा $800 में, महज $800 में वापस जो है स्टीव जॉब को बेच दिया। वही $800 का शेयर अगर उस वक्त उसके पास रखता तो आज उसकी कीमत, नेटवर्थ, मार्केट वैल्यू थी $40 बिलियन। बोलते नसीब में अगर ना हो तो कुछ नहीं मिलता, क्योंकि देने वाले को जब देता है तो छप्पड़ फाड़ के देता है। हाँ या ना? कैसा लगा पहला वीडियो? इंटरेस्टिंग? वाज इट इंटरेस्टिंग? मजा आ रहा है क्या आज के लेक्चर में? हाँ या ना? सोना नहीं है क्लास में आके? इज इट इंटरेस्टिंग? चलिए नाउ 15 few facts जो नॉर्मली कॉमन पीपल को पता नहीं होता एप्पल के बारे में।
15 things you didn't know about Apple. Welcome to alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Good morning, Aluxers. We hope you're having an incredible day so far. In this video, we take a look at some of the less-known facts about the most profitable company in the world, Apple Inc. The company is on track to become the first trillion-dollar company, but there were a lot of things you might have missed on, mostly because the company isn't proud of or simply didn't get that much coverage compared to the shiny products they sell now. Let's take a look at 15 things you might not know about Apple. Number 1. Apple actually had 3 founders. We all know that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak put together the first Apple computer in the garage of Woz's parents' home in Cupertino, California. But few know there was a third guy working along with them, Ronald Wayne, a friend of Jobs from when they both worked at Atari, and he agreed to help start Apple with him. Not only did he help develop the computer, he wrote its manual and even came up with Apple's first logo. When he realized Apple might not make it, he sold his shares to Steve's for $800. A real bad move. That share would be worth something like $40 billion now. Wayne now sells stamps and coins in a Nevada trailer park. Number 2. Apple was started with a calculator. To start the company, Jobs sold his VW microbus and Woz sold his calculator. That might sound pretty one-sided now, but the fact is that the scientific calculator was worth more than the van back then. Woz managed to sell it for $500. That's around $2,000 in today's money.
Hey, what's up? So in the next 60 seconds, what I'm going to show you is how you can get paid weekly.
Number 3. Steve Jobs is the son of a Syrian immigrant. Few people know that Steve Jobs was adopted. Even fewer know that his father was Abdul Fattah Jandi, a Syrian immigrant that got Joanne Schriebel pregnant in college. Due to parental issues, the baby was put up for adoption, and although the mother insisted the baby be adopted by educated people, young Steve was adopted by Paul Jobs, a high school dropout, and Clara Jobs, who hadn't finished college. John Dolly, who manages a Nevada casino, never met his son, but the two did exchange brief emails just before Jobs died. Number 4. In 1986, Apple started a clothing line. You might have never heard of it because the project failed completely. They called it the Apple Collection, and the idea is far from the modern, sleek, minimalist, and timeless design that makes Apple products the sensation they are today. It's hard to picture Turtleneck Steve wearing a tracksuit in rainbow-colored Apple logo. Number 5. Apple owns the patent for the Slide to Unlock feature. Apple is currently suing Samsung, claiming patent infringement over this. A judge has already overturned Apple's patent claims to Slide to Unlock in Germany. Number 6. Apple's iPad's Retina display is actually manufactured by Samsung. Apple found out that outsourcing their Retina display to Samsung is actually cheaper than creating the infrastructure to build it themselves. Also, it's an incredibly lucrative contract that gives Apple slight leverage with Samsung. Number 7. Steve Jobs invented the computer mouse by stealing it from Xerox. Back in the early computer years, in order to click on something, you had to insert rows of code that would tell the cursor where on a grid it should go and what action you wanted it to perform. While visiting Xerox's research center, he noticed a 3-button mouse that would have been perfect for his Apple interface. The only problem is that it costed $300, so he had the team drop one of the buttons and the cost down to $15. Number 8. Jonathan Ive has worn the same t-shirt in every Apple product intro video since 2000. Same as Steve, Apple's lead designer wears the same type of clothing in all official releases. They come in lovely dad shades of earth tones, and they are made by a company called G-Star. Number 9. The Mac battery is bulletproof. In case of horrific events, the battery inside your MacBook could potentially save your life, as it was made to be bulletproof. Number 10. Bill Gates stole Windows from Apple. In a similar fashion how Mark Zuckerberg stole the Facebook idea from the Winklevoss twins, Steve Jobs tasked Bill Gates with creating an operating system for Apple. After developing the product, Bill saw its standalone potential and decided to never deliver it and started selling Windows on his own. Number 11. Steve Jobs forced Microsoft to save Apple Inc. In 1997, Apple was running out of cash. Their legal battles with Microsoft were going on for so long and costing them a ton of money, so Steve offered Bill Gates the possibility of a settlement of $150 million for non-voting shares at Apple. Microsoft promised to support Microsoft Office for the Mac for 5 years, while Apple agreed to make Internet Explorer the default web browser on the Mac, but not the only one. Number 12. The most expensive iPhone in the world costs $15 million. At alux.com, we've covered almost all the most expensive items in the world. One of them is this $15 million iPhone covered in gold and diamonds. If you want to learn more about it or other most expensive Apple products, we'll link them in the description. Number 13. Apple has more cash on hand than the US Treasury. Not only does Apple have more, but it has at least 4 times the amount of money. As of 2015, the US Treasury has around $50 billion in cash, while looking at Apple's balance sheets show it has over $200 billion cash on hand. To put it into perspective, Apple is currently worth more than the entire Russian stock market put together. Number 14. If Apple were to go on a shopping spree, it could buy almost 80% of the top 500 companies in America. To make things interesting, Apple could buy both Netflix and Tesla with the earnings from only one yearly quarter. Netflix has a cap of $23 billion, and Tesla is worth around $28 billion. If they wanted to, they could pick up Amazon for $90 billion and still have enough cash to buy Coca-Cola or Disney. Number 15. In the last years of his life, Steve Jobs declared war on Google. Steve said, and I quote, "I will spend my last dying breath to right this wrong. I'm going to destroy Android because it's a stolen product. I'm willing to go thermonuclear war on this. They're scared to death because they know they are guilty." In a last attempt to crumble Google's advertising empire, Apple may allow or have ad blockers pre-installed on all their devices, so you get a better experience while browsing the internet. This will be Steve's final blow towards Google, if it were to ever be put in place. Because you stuck with us till the end, we've got some extra info for you. Apple announced that it will come out with an electric car in the next 5 years. Both Steve and Tim Cook talked with Elon about Apple acquiring Tesla, but Musk didn't want to sell. What do you think about Apple's decision to build its own electric car? Should they? Or should they simply buy GM or Ford and go from there? Let us know in the comments.
I think companies like Apple will probably make a compelling electric car. It seems like the obvious thing to do.
Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxer. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you want more, we handpicked these videos you might enjoy, or head over to alux.com for the best in fine living content on the planet. Be a part of the largest community of luxury enthusiasts in the world and tell your story.
गाइस इंटरेस्टिंग, मजा आ रहा है क्या देखने में? इतना पैसा है बेटा इस कंपनी के पास, अमेज़ॉन को खरीदने के बाद भी इनके पास 100 बिलियन से ज़्यादा कैश इनके पास पड़ा रहेगा. हाउ इंटरेस्टिंग आर द फैक्ट्स. नाउ डोंट टेल मी दैट यू न्यू ऑल दिस. आई गेस एंड आई एम करेक्ट कि इसमें से एक भी बात किसी को भी पता नहीं होगी. प्लीज मुझे ये मत बोलना कि सर ये पता था. बहुत देख समझ कर रिसर्च कर फिर तुम्हारे पास कोई वीडियो लाता हूं. ऐसे ही कोई वीडियो प्ले नहीं किया जाता. चलो next video we got to look at is inside the iPhone factory in China.
Last month, it emerged that Apple, the most valuable company in the world and supposedly an icon of squeaky clean progressive values, brushed aside allegations of child labor within its key Chinese supply chain. The suggestion is that a big Apple supplier named Suyin Electronics employed workers as young as 14 in the interests of keeping up with the ferocious appetite for Apple goods in the West. Apple chided Suyin, but maintained ties for months and even years afterwards. With new allegations like this and a spate of suicides associated with the brand's manufacturing base over the years, we thought it was time we put on our lanyards and take a peek inside an iPhone factory in China. The first and most important thing to understand is that Apple factories in China aren't technically Apple factories at all. Instead, the California tech giant subcontracts its manufacturing out to a firm called Han High Precision Industry Co. Limited, which is much more popularly known as Foxconn Technology Group or simply Foxconn. Foxconn was founded by colourful Taiwanese businessman Terry Gu, who has been playfully dubbed the Donald Trump of Taiwan and is reportedly worth somewhere north of $5 billion. Foxconn is the biggest employer in China, with some 1.3 million members of staff on the books in 2018. It manufactures consumer electronics for a variety of companies, from Samsung to Dell to HP, but is most famous for manufacturing Apple products, and most notably the iPhone. Fully half of all the world's iPhones, many hundreds of millions, are manufactured at a sprawling Foxconn facility on the outskirts of Zhengzhou. Zhengzhou is a city of around 9.5 million people in Hunan province, historically a poverty-stricken province of the People's Republic. Locals often refer to the Zhengzhou Foxconn plant as iPhone City, and that's a pretty fair description. At peak times, some 350,000 staff work there, most living in dormitories on site. During the build-up to a big new iPhone release, the plant can produce as many as 500,000 units a day. That's nearly 350 every minute. Around the factory, supporting businesses such as restaurants, massage parlors and shoe shops have sprung up to support the mammoth workforce. Inside the Zhengzhou factory, which is dedicated to the final stage of iPhone assembly, some 400 discrete tasks are broken down and carried out by its army of workers. Most employees will perform one task repeatedly over and over again, day after day. This could be as interesting as soldering or as dull as fitting a single screw into the back of the devices, again and again and again. So how do they recruit? Back in 2017, a student at NYU called Dejian Zheng went undercover for 6 months at the Zhengzhou plant to investigate the labor situation. According to Zheng's report, all he had to do to get hired was join a queue of eager applicants outside the factory. Zheng was asked for his identification and retired to recite the English alphabet as it was in common use in the factory. Then he was in. Zheng worked on an assembly line with around 200 other recruits, monotonously assembling many hundreds of devices per shift. He said the work was boring and tiring, but didn't report any specific abuses across the grueling 6-day week, aside from a supervisor yelling every now and then. His main complaint was that the overtime was presented as voluntary, but was very clearly mandatory on pain of being fired. It's been reported elsewhere that the Chinese government itself, keen to keep this lucrative business running smoothly, steps in to help with a never-ending recruitment drive. During peak summer months, in the build-up to the traditional autumn iPhone release date, a speaker is said to stand at the Zhengzhou factory gates yelling out for workers who are optimistic and diligent. Hunan province even reportedly sets quotas for the numbers of workers that villages and cities should provide to keep the factory ticking over efficiently and effectively. The gender balance on the factory floor is said to be roughly equal, and the typical age of a factory worker is between 18 and 25, though interns are frequently as young as 16. And while underage workers have been found in Apple's supply chain, nearly a dozen 15-year-old children were discovered to be working across 3 factories according to one report. There are no reports that Foxconn's Zhengzhou facility was directly involved. Worker conditions in Zhengzhou, while not as brutal as sweatshops, do seem extraordinary to Western eyes. Factory workers stay close by the plant in dorm buildings up to 12 stories high, with 8 workers sharing a room, sometimes with only 1 bathroom per floor shared by as many as 200 people. US-based pressure group China Labor Watch discovered during undercover investigations that workers are actively forbidden from resigning their post during busy peak times, but conceded that the most egregious allegations of brutality and bullying made by others have perhaps been overstated. One worker, whose role was wiping special polish onto the LCD screens, said she handled around 1,700 iPhones a day, and that it was mundane work, but also that there were worse things to endure in life than monotony. However, the grind of working 6 straight days, only seeing family on Sunday if they happen to live locally, clearly takes its toll. The most common complaint about working at Foxconn in Zhengzhou is boredom. When NY student Zheng spent those 6 weeks on the production line, he said he quickly grew to hate it. Real workers, speaking anonymously, have claimed a high turnover of staff. After a year, people get bored or disinterested, claimed one. They leave. Other Foxconn workers have said that, while building iPhones isn't exactly their childhood dream, the facility is no better or worse than other Chinese factories they'd worked at. Of course, there is a much darker side to the allegations leveled at Apple. Although not directly related to the assembly plant in Zhengzhou, it has been reported that Apple products have been made using forced Uyghur labor, an ethnic minority in China who endure horrific working conditions and even wage theft by unscrupulous overseers. According to the New York Times, lawmakers in the United States have proposed legislation designed to curb American companies' ability to use forced Uyghur labor. Apple, it is said, set out to weaken the bill. Although Apple, for its part, says it did not lobby against the legislation, but instead had, as the company puts it, constructive discussions with the relevant congressional staff. And as for those MacBook makers at Suyin Electronics we mentioned at the start, when the issue came to light, Apple told the firm to address the issue or risk losing business. But Apple otherwise continued to work with Suyin for 3 years. Former members of the so-called supplier responsibility team at Apple told reporters from The Information that the Suyin incident wasn't isolated, and that profits sadly seem to have been the driving force between decision-making. So what does the future look like for Apple and its labor practices? As living standards in China inevitably improve, so does the cost of labor, and so the factories may well move elsewhere. Foxconn recently found itself in hot water for exaggerating its staffing requirements to Apple in order to illicitly cream profits from the Californian firm. So it's not always a cozy relationship between the two giants. Most pertinently, undercover student Zheng observed in 2017 that several stations on the production line where he worked were already taken up by robots, known in-house as Foxbots, a trend that will surely continue. However its iPhones are manufactured going forward into the future, let's just hope Apple's working practices live up to the firm's lofty brand ideals, and that latter-day disciples of Steve Jobs can at least help someone somewhere get a good job. What do you think? Is Apple justified keeping suppliers at arm's length in order to keep costs competitive for the end user? Tell us your ideas in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking tech videos.
How's this? The most interesting now. Inside the Apple Park. एक अजूबे से कम नहीं है ये ऑफिस. Are you guys excited for this video? Is everyone excited for this video? Let's start.
What looks like a giant spaceship parked in the lush flats of Cupertino, California, is actually tech giant Apple's new HQ. Fittingly named the Apple Park, this stunning architecture sprawls across 176 acres of land and might just be one of the most stunning campuses in the world. Despite its incredibly futuristic looks, the Apple Park has been a long time in the making, with Steve Jobs first announcing the project way back in 2006. It took 8 long years of planning, proposals and permit applications, but by 2014, construction was well underway, and by 2017, the vast Apple workforce was already starting to move in. The massive ring-shaped building is now an iconic symbol of the Apple brand and is a fantastic testament to the company's dedication to effortless design, sustainability, and the future of technology. It was originally estimated that the campus would cost just $500 million to put together. However, the land alone cost $160 million, and the costs quickly started to overrun. By 2011, the budget in place had multiplied to a little under $3 billion, and when it was all said and done, Apple were looking at a bill closer to $5 billion. A $5 billion build is a big sum of money for any company to justify. Any company except Apple, that is, who's currently worth $2 trillion and is estimated to profit around $60 billion by the end of this year alone. So where was all that money spent, and what makes the Apple Park so incredible? For starters, the campus is made up of multiple buildings. However, 80% of the land is still considered to be green space. Apple and the designers put a lot of effort into making the park fit seamlessly into nature, planting over 9,000 drought-resistant trees throughout the grounds, including cherry, apricot, olive, and of course, a few varieties of apple. To encourage workers to maintain a healthy lifestyle, the grounds feature 3.2 kilometers worth of various walking and running trails, as well as 1,000 bikes that can be used to commute between the buildings. Other lifestyle facilities include a gym, wellness center, and a couple of basketball courts. There's also a huge 2-story yoga studio where the desk jockeys can wind down and ease out their back pain. The campus really does look after its staff and the environment too. All of the buildings are incredibly eco-friendly, with the main ring construction being home to one of the world's largest rooftop solar farms. The solar-covered roof generates up to 17 megawatts of power, which is enough to meet 75% of the campus's energy demand during peak times. The rest of the campus's needs are met by on-site fuel cells powered by biofuel or natural gas. The main building also utilizes a natural ventilation system, meaning that it doesn't use traditional heating and cooling methods for 9 months of the year, furthering the space's green credentials. Nicknamed the Spaceship or the Ring, the central circular building is quite a sight to behold. Sitting 4 stories high, it has over 1.2 million square feet of office space and enough room to accommodate up to 12,000 members of staff. To bring the outside world in, the designers incorporated a lot of glass into the build, and the construction even features the largest curved glass panes in the world. There are 800 of the 45-foot tall curved glass panels around the building's exterior, and around 3,000 smaller panels to be found within. The low-energy LEDs, natural sunlight, and sheer amount of see-through material make the spaceship a stunningly bright place to be, which I'm sure is great at keeping the some 12,000 staff members feeling energized throughout their long working days. Despite being hidden from sight, one of the most amazing spaceship features happens to be found deep underground. The main ring is one of the few buildings in the US and the world to make use of base isolation, which protects the ring from even the worst of Californian earthquakes. The isolation system is made up of 692 huge stainless steel plates, which allow the building to shift up to 4 feet in any given direction without causing any structural damage. Also to be found underground is an expansive parking area and road network that's completely hidden from sight. Putting these amenities underground was an absolute necessity in order to maximize the green space in and around the Apple Park. Other features to be found around the campus include 7 cafes, with the largest being sprawled across 3 levels with enough seating for 3,000 people. The huge catering team says it has enough capacity to feed around 15,000 people every lunchtime, so there's definitely some growing room if Apple decides to expand its already huge workforce. Also within the park's grounds is the inspiring Apple Auditorium, formerly known as the Steve Jobs Theatre. The spectacular circular glass building mirrors the spaceship in its form and is topped with the world's largest carbon fiber roof. The theatre includes a 42-foot high glass elevator that takes guests underground to the 1,000-seat auditorium. Made from chemically tempered glass, the elevator is also considered to be the tallest freestanding glass elevator in the world. Other buildings dotted around the park include a 100,000 square foot fitness center, 2 300,000 square foot research and development facilities, a care clinic, and the visitors center, which happens to be the only building in the entire park that guests can visit without a pass. The Apple Park Visitor Center is all under one roof, but is divided into 4 very special sections. A 10,000 square foot Apple store filled with the latest Apple products, a 2,000 square foot cafe, an observation deck where you can look over the campus, and a designated AR experience area. The AR area includes a scale model of the entire Apple Park, offering visitors an employer's look at life on campus. The Apple Park is so full of amazing features and amenities, more so than almost any other work environment in the world. Apple has thought of everything, from their environmental footprint to keeping their workforce full up with food, leisure, and creativity. There have been a few complaints about the open-plan office spaces, with some workers saying that they are distracting, counterproductive, and removes opportunity for privacy. But still, the futuristic facility has been incredibly well received and has set a new world standard in how amazing a work environment can truly be.
How's this? कैसा रहा? How's this guys? ये वाला वीडियो कैसा लगा? I guess this is the first time where most of you have seen the iPhone headquarters. The next company we are going to talk about today is Amazon. अगली कंपनी जिसके बारे में हम बात करने वाले हैं वो है Amazon. Amazon हमारे इंडिया में ऑपरेट करता है. Amazon इंडिया का हेडक्वार्टर जो है वो मुंबई में है, हैदराबाद में है. जेफ बेजोस इसके फाउंडर चेयरमैन है. एक ऑनलाइन बुक सेलिंग कंपनी से इसकी शुरुआत हुई थी एंड नाउ इट इज बिकम द बिगेस्ट मार्केट लीडर फॉर द ई-कॉमर्स बिजनेस, where more than 50% of the market share or the online business is done by a single company, that is Amazon. Incorporation year is 1994. Headquarters are installed at Washington, US. Founders are Jeff Bezos. Present head and CEO also is the same. Chief Financial Officer is Brian Olesky. Amazon.com Inc. is an American multinational technology company based in Stellar, Washington, which focuses on e-commerce, cloud computing, digital streaming and artificial intelligence. 90 बिलियन की कंपनी अगर आईफोन अगर खरीद भी ले तो भी उनके पास 120 बिलियन यूएस डॉलर का कैश रिजर्व अवेलेबल रहेगा. ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ आईफोन की वजह से हुआ है. इट इज कंसिडर्ड द वन ऑफ द बिग 4 कंपनीज इन यूएस इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी इंडस्ट्री with Google, Apple and Facebook. The company has been referred to as one of the most influential economical and cultural forces in the world, as well as the world's most valuable brand. इस ई कॉमर्स बिजनेस का जितना बिजनेस यूएस में नहीं है उससे ज़्यादा इन्होंने बिजनेस बाहर कैप्चर किया है. ऑनलाइन ई कॉमर्स बिजनेस हमारे इंडिया में जो पॉपुलैरिटी गेन की है उसमें अमेजोन ने ऐसे डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज और जहाँ पे ई कॉमर्स बिजनेस अभी डेवलपमेंट फेज में है ऐसे देशों में निवेश करके अपना मार्केट स्ट्रक्चर, अपना मार्केट शेयर जो है पूरे वर्ल्ड में बढ़ाया है. Amazon is also known for distribution of well-established industries to technological innovation and mass scale. It is the world's largest online marketplace, artificial intelligence assistant provider, live streaming platform, and cloud computing platform as measured by revenue and market capitalization. Amazon is the largest internet company by revenue in the world. It is the second largest private employer in the USA and one of the world's largest valuable companies. History of Amazon starts with Jeff Bezos founded Amazon in 1994 July as an online bookstore to buy and rent books. He chose Stellar because of the technical talent of Microsoft is located in Stellar. The company began selling music and videos in 1998. At the time, it began operation internationally by acquiring online sellers of the books in United Kingdom and Germany. The following year, organization also sold video games, consumer electronic, home improvement items, software, games and toys in addition to the other items. The company invested heavily in cloud computing and artificial intelligence and rose to become one of the most valuable companies in the world. Amazon's operation in India started in the year 2012-13. Headquarters is in Hyderabad, India. Present head of Amazon India is Amit Agarwal. Chief Financial Officer is Raghav Rao. Vision to claim the earth's most consumer-centric company. Mission to continuously raise the bar of consumer experience by using internet and technology to help the consumers find and discover and buy anything and empower the business and content creators to maximize their success. Portfolio of the company, product and services it offers. Amazon.com's product line available at the website includes several media, apparel, baby products, consumer electronics, beauty products, gourmet food, groceries, health and personal care, industrial and scientific supplies, kitchen supplies, in garden items, musical instruments, sporting tools, etc. It has the following services for its customer: Amazon Fresh, Amazon Prime, Amazon Web Service, Alexa, then App Store, Amazon Drive, then Amazon Drive, Echo, Kindle, Fire tablets, Fire TV, then video, Kindle Store, music, then Music Unlimited, Amazon Digital Game Store, Amazon Studios and Amazon Wireless. Business and news: Amazon is ranked second on the Fortune of 500 list of companies. Amazon ranked 22 on the world's largest public corporation. First American Customer Satisfaction Index Internet Religion category 2020 ranked in the top 10 11 years running. First brands most valuable global brand. Fortune world's most admired companies. Jeff Bezos is currently the richest person in the world with a personal wealth of $175 billion US dollars. 175 बिलियन US डॉलर्स. पहले हम हिस्ट्री का देखेंगे, इसका भी एक इंटरेस्टिंग वीडियो है.
मेरा नाम मंजीरा है और मेरा फर्म का नाम है संविता. जुलाई 2020 से मैं.
Hi there, who are you?
I'm Jeff Bezos.
And what is your claim to fame?
I'm the founder of Amazon.com.
Amazon. Most of you know it as the online marketplace where you can buy anything from 6-foot tall, 150-pound Bigfoot statues to Nicolas Cage pillowcases. Yeah, Amazon sells pretty much everything. In fact, they currently have a selection of over 100 million different products to choose from, and they also shipped about 5 billion items last year alone. That accounts for nearly 40% of everything sold on the internet. But even though Amazon is known by consumers as a company that makes money by selling products online, that actually isn't how Amazon makes money. In fact, Amazon loses money on nearly every single purchase that is made through their website. So how did Amazon make its money? How is it profitable? And how did they become the mammoth of an e-commerce company like they are today? Well, it actually started off with fairly modest beginnings. This is the story of Amazon. Let's take you all the way back to the 1990s when the top fads were Beanie Babies, Tamagotchis, and yes, the internet.
Allison, can you explain what internet is?
It's a giant computer network.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us what this was.
It's like a computer billboard.
It is true that when I was a kid, the information superhighway, as we called it, was an unknown but growing sector of the economy. Actually, the term growing may be a little bit of an understatement in this case because the growth of e-commerce in 1994 was nearly 2,300%. A young Wall Street executive named Jeff Bezos had been paying attention to the growth of the internet and decided to leave his Wall Street firm in order to start an e-commerce company. He did this because he had something which he called a regret minimization framework, which meant that he never wanted to wake up one day when he was 70 years old and regret not trying to start a business with a massive growth opportunity like the internet. So Mr. Bezos packed up, moved to Seattle, and began to work on a business plan for his new e-commerce company, which he called Cadabra Inc. Not what you were expecting, I'm guessing. He then went to legally incorporate the company, Cadabra Inc., except that his lawyer misheard the company name and incorporated it as Cadaver Inc., which was a little bit too dark for Bezos' liking, so he came up with another name, Relentless. Again, I'm guessing that's not what you were expecting. Bezos purchased Relentless.com in September of 1994, but after his friends told him that it sounded too sinister, he ended up settling on Amazon.com. One little side note or fun fact here is that if you were to type in Relentless.com into your address bar or into Google, you'll find that it redirects you to Amazon.com. So the next thing Bezos did was he created a list of 20 categories of products that could be sold on his website, and he specifically wanted a wide variety of products to exist within each one of those categories. He then narrowed it down to 5 categories. They were compact discs, computer hardware, computer software, videos, and books. Eventually, he decided to focus in on books due to the high demand of books, the large amounts of titles available, and the low price point. Within 2 months of launching Amazon.com, the company had sold books in 45 countries and was making over $80,000 per month. Little did they know that within 25 years, Amazon would soon be making $80,000 every 14 seconds. Revenue for Amazon continued to grow over the next couple of years, so they decided to go public in 1996 and they were listed on the NASDAQ. Amazon stock IPO'd at the equivalent of $1.50 price per share. And when you look at Amazon's stock price today, which is a cool $1,500, you can do the math and calculate that if you invested $10,000 in Amazon's IPO in 1996, it would be worth roughly $10 million today. However, Amazon would hit a few rough patches over the next few years. Barnes & Noble sued Amazon in 1997, alleging that Amazon's claim to be the world's largest bookstore was false because it isn't a bookstore at all, it's a book broker. The suit was settled out of court, and Amazon continued to call itself the world's largest bookstore. Amazon was then sued again by Walmart in 1998, alleging that Amazon stole some of Walmart's secrets by hiring former Walmart executives. The suit was also settled out of court. Despite these lawsuits, Amazon continued to grow at a tremendous rate by mainly selling books. But selling just books was not good enough for Jeff Bezos, so later in 1998, the company made a big decision to expand beyond books and started selling a little bit of everything. This was the first step that Amazon took towards becoming the everything store. The decision to start selling everything made Amazon's revenue jump to nearly $1 billion, cementing itself as one of the giants of the e-commerce industry. Investors soon became very fond of Amazon and its upside potential, which made Amazon's stock price reach $113 per share in 1999, and indirectly making Jeff Bezos a billionaire and Time's Person of the Year. It very much seemed like nothing could go wrong for Amazon. However, Amazon was amongst many other tech companies that seemed to be going through a golden age of tech sector investing within the stock market. But this was the exact opposite of a golden age. At the time, investors thought investing in new tech startups with zero profit and very little revenue was a fantastic idea. In fact, most investors didn't even know much about what they were investing in. They just heard about the crazy returns that these tech investments were getting, so they just decided to go with the flow and gamble with their money without knowing much about how they were getting their returns. Luckily today, we don't have anything like that out there, so don't worry about this. This senseless investing in the late 90s from Wall Street caused a massive tech bubble or dot-com bubble in the stock market. For proof of how crazy some of these tech investments were, here are some companies that were valued at near or over $1 billion at the time with little to no revenue. Broadcast.com, GeoCities, TheGlobe.com, Healthion, Inktomi, Actua, VerticalNet, ThinkTools, InfoSeek, Global Crossing, Commerce One, and there are actually tons of other ones, but covering all of the billion-dollar tech companies that went bust during the tech bubble would take all day. So how does this relate to Amazon? Well, after investors came to their senses and realized that companies that don't have a product yet shouldn't be worth $2 billion, they decided to pull their money out of the overvalued tech sector. This caused Amazon's stock price to fall from $113 at its high to $5.51 at its low. That's a 95% drop. This may not seem like it should mean much to a company because the stock price has very little to do with the day-to-day operations of a company, even dramatic swings like that. But it does certainly affect a company's access to capital and financing, which are usually vital for startup tech companies like Amazon. Needless to say, most young tech companies did not survive the tech bubble bursting. However, eBay, Priceline, SanDisk, Shutterfly, and Amazon were some of the few that managed to make it out alive. Over the next few years, Amazon would start making very modest profits. Nothing too special, but they weren't growing as fast and they became somewhat stagnant as a company. So they had to try something else. In 2005, they thought, what if we offered free 2-day shipping within the United States on select products? They called this Amazon Prime. However, this was the second most important move that Amazon would make in 2005, but we will come back to that in a second. The move to give free 2-day shipping on a lot of products would actually make the company lose money on every single product that was shipped due to the increased cost of this fast shipping. And to this day in 2018, Amazon still loses money on every single product that is sold on their website. So how does Amazon make a profit? IMDb, Audible, Zappos, Twitch, Whole Foods. What do these companies have in common? Well, all of these companies are worth over $1 billion and all are owned by Amazon. Even though these subsidiary companies do not affect Amazon's bottom line that much in terms of revenue, what I wanted to show you is that a lot of giant companies have a business strategy where their main product or service is not profitable, like Amazon's marketplace, but several of their smaller subsidiaries' products or services are profitable. So let's bring this back. Remember when I said that Amazon Prime was the second biggest decision that Amazon made in 2005? Well, that's because the biggest decision, at least in my opinion, was starting a subsidiary company called Amazon Web Services, or AWS for short. AWS does a ton of different things, but to try and simplify it, AWS is a cloud computing company that hosts websites and applications for customers and other businesses. For example, let's say you have a great new business idea, Tinder, but for dogs. Let's call it Dogger. In order for you to build Dogger and have it be connected to the internet, you will need to put it on a server. There are plenty of companies that will cut corners and let you host a personal blog on part of a server for about $4.95 a month. But if you want to build a big company, you will likely need 1 to 10 full servers to start, and each one of these will cost you between $2,000 and $5,000 a piece. And for a lot of small businesses that are just starting out, that can be really unaffordable. So AWS lets you rent out servers based on your needs, and the price is variable depending on your usage. but it usually ends up being around $500 to $1,000 per year depending on your company. That's much more reasonable for a startup like Dogger. So to summarize what AWS does is they offer a very affordable way for businesses to host large-scale websites. This would become very vital to Amazon in the future. In fact, over the next 13 years, AWS would end up growing at a rate faster than Amazon Marketplace. Roughly 34% of all websites today use Amazon Web Services as a platform. Meanwhile, the next three biggest competitors, Microsoft, Google, and IBM, own 11%, 8%, and 6% of that share respectively. So how important is AWS to Amazon as a whole? Well, let's break down their financial information. Amazon Marketplace made $160 billion in revenue last year, but had a loss of $200 million, largely because of the shipping costs. This means that they had a loss margin of 0.125%, which also means that on every single product that is sold through their website, Amazon loses, on average, 0.125%. That doesn't sound like a great business strategy to me. Step in Amazon Web Services. AWS made $17.5 billion in revenue last year, $4.3 billion of which was profit, meaning that AWS has a profit margin of 24.5%. So, even though AWS makes up only 9.8% of Amazon's revenue, it makes up nearly 100% of Amazon's profit and cancels out any losses that Amazon Marketplace may acquire from expanding its control over online shipping using Amazon Prime. And I cannot stress the importance of this enough because AWS gave Amazon Marketplace the ability to take losses on all of its transactions while expanding Amazon Prime to what we know it is today. This allowed Amazon to really leave other e-commerce competitors like eBay in the dust. However, while Amazon was on the path to becoming this e-commerce giant, it also had some downsides along the way. For example, Amazon has gotten in trouble for allegedly not paying taxes and for having an anti-competitive advantage over other storefront businesses because Amazon was not really forced to pay sales tax up until 2011. They have also gotten in trouble many times for allegedly having poor working conditions. One time in 2011, warehouse workers in Pennsylvania had to carry out work in 38 degrees Celsius heat, which allegedly made some employees suffer from dehydration and even faint. This was allegedly because loading bay doors were not allowed to be open to allow fresh air inside the warehouse because of Amazon's concerns over theft. So, what did Amazon do? They paid for an ambulance to sit outside on call to cart away any overheated employees. The company eventually installed air conditioning at this warehouse. Another gripe with Amazon comes from businesses that sell on Amazon. Half of Amazon Marketplace is populated by small business owners and people who make a living off of selling things online. You may have actually heard me talking about why you should sell things on Amazon in past videos. However, in the past few years, when Amazon sees that a product is selling well on their website, they make their own version of that product and undercut the original seller, and rank their product ahead of the small business owner that originally posted the product. This has made small business owners unable to compete on Amazon's website and lose an essential portion of their income. But what if you could sell your products online without having too much competition from a big monopoly company like Amazon? Or what if you could buy a product online and have it shipped to you in 2 days without needing to spend $100 on Amazon Prime? Well, Joysk.com is a new startup marketplace that I'm currently building. It is still in the alpha testing stage and free 2-day shipping is only being tested in a few cities in Canada at the moment. But if you want to support this channel, I would really appreciate if you'd go onto Joysk.com, just check it out, maybe buy something if you'd like, or start selling something and maybe make some cash yourself. Or you can just buy a cheap product and, resell it on Amazon or eBay for all I care. Or resell it on Joysk. It's totally up to you. Honestly, there are still a lot of kinks to work out in this website, so it's still in the testing stage, and I'm not marketing this site like crazy right now, but it would mean a lot to me if you'd go on there, at least check it out, let me know what you think. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people. Please subscribe if you like this video and hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.
There is one more video, the Amazon Smart Store, Smart Warehouse.
ऑर्डर्स 1 करोड़ प्लस रीसेलर्स के साथ तो रुके ना रहें, आज ही मीशो सप्लायर बने।
Amazon is the world's biggest retailer, and its CEO Jeff Bezos is the world's richest man for one very good reason. His company is better than anyone else ever at giving people what they want quickly. Amazon acquired its undisputed status as the heavyweight champion of the retail universe thanks largely to its lightning-fast delivery times. The astonishing feat of ferrying hundreds of millions of items, from guitar strings to saucepans to car parts, directly to your door inside 24 hours is nothing short of a modern logistical miracle. So how does Amazon do it? A super smart army of slave robots, for one. Ingenious, if occasionally unscrupulous, management practices are part of the answer too. And the modern-day voodoo of deep learning AI, all of which are made flesh in the most advanced stockrooms the world has ever seen. So join us today as we button up our high-vis jacket and journey inside Amazon's smart warehouses. In the year to September 2020, with the global economy in the teeth of coronavirus and the bleakest employment outlook in history, Amazon reported global revenues of little under $350 billion. That's roughly double what it earned in 2017, by the way, only 3 short years earlier. Not bad for a company which only started trading in 1994. Amazon has built its empire on a platform of sheer, unbeatable convenience for the end user. You, the customer, need a product. So you open the app or have a quiet word with Alexa, and next day, hey presto, it's sitting on your doorstep. Moving products from A to B quickly is not easy. Compared with other modern technology giants which barely need to exist in the real world, think of Netflix, Google or Facebook, Amazon needs to shift an astonishingly vast amount of sheer bulk safely, precisely and quickly all day, every day. So how does it do it? Last year, a senior Amazon executive described Amazon's warehouses, rather poetically, as a symphony of humans and machines working together. How does this symphony actually work? Let's take it from the top. Before you've even logged onto its website, Amazon has a fairly good idea of what you're going to buy. This is all down to the semi-occult 21st century abracadabra that is deep learning AI, which Amazon has been leveraging to incredible effect since around 2015. Put simply, an algorithm makes some assumptions about you based on your age, location, socioeconomic background, and purchase history. It will then, hours, days, or even weeks before you actually log on, ensure that your local warehouse is stocked with appropriate quantities of stock you're likely to consider buying. This might be a certain style of racy swimsuit that the algorithm anticipates will be the hot new must-have come springtime. It might be the paperback novel for a soon-to-go viral TV adaptation. In January 2020, for instance, Amazon's algorithm correctly anticipated high incoming demands for face masks, and, well, we all know what happened there. So Amazon's smart warehouses, also known as fulfillment centers, not to be confused with their post office-style sortation centers, very often know what you want even before you do. Or at least they know the very second you click Buy Now in the case of those wine-inspired late-night impulse buys. Once you've clicked, our symphony begins in earnest. You may have read headlines in recent years suggesting Amazon workers walk as many as 12 miles per shift, darting about between shelves, frantically picking up items. That's no longer quite true. Amazon's modern fulfillment centers are largely patrolled by an army of squat, Roomba-like robots that pick up whole shelves, also known as pods, and bring them to a human picker situated at a stationary work.
With Grammarly, you can find really good, no, perfect words that make your writing sharp, or explicit, or excellent, or distinctive. So your message connects. Grammarly, helping you connect. Go to Grammarly.com and download today.
Workstation. Amazon's enlistment of this whirring battalion began in 2012, when the company purchased robotics company Kiva Systems, the market leader in warehouse automation, for an eye-watering $775 million cash. The company's flagship model, commonly referred to as Kiva, is around 30 centimeters high and capable of lifting 450 kilograms in weight, whilst traveling at around 3 miles per hour. The substitution of these squat orange automatons in place of dashing human workers makes a colossal difference to Amazon's bottom line. It's been estimated that Amazon's warehouses can now hold 50% more stock and retrieve that stock 3 times faster. This reduces the overall cost of fulfillment by some 40%. Cheaper, quicker warehouses mean products that are more affordable for the end user, and crucially, products that are much more likely to be on the van driving down your street the following day. Amazon isn't about to stop there. In a move that could be described as either ruthless or inspired, upon purchasing Kiva, Jeff Bezos changed the name of the company to Amazon Robotics and told all previous Kiva customers, household names like Gap, Walgreens and Staples, they'd no longer be allowed to buy new Kiva technology. This, of course, gives Amazon an incalculable competitive advantage. Since rolling out the Kiva robot across its fulfillment centers, by 2018 they had 100,000 of them, by now that figure has comfortably surpassed 200,000, Amazon Robotics has been refining the design still further. The new iteration of Kiva, known as Pegasus, is 10 centimeters shorter, meaning more can be stocked on top and uses half the parts, so it's cheaper to manufacture and maintain. Amazon says Pegasus can lift a hefty 600 kilograms and can be customized with a conveyor belt to work in the sortation centers, where, Amazon reports, errors in delivery have been halved thanks to Pegasus. Naturally, Amazon isn't quitting there. Last summer, it announced a newer, thinner robot still called Xanthus and coming to a fulfillment center near you. So how do these pimped-out Roombas get around without knocking into each other all the time? Cloud-based software operating what can fairly be described as an AI-run air traffic control network coordinates the route of every single robot. This is all about optimization. What's the quickest route to get to a product that won't interfere with other robots on their own runs? What's the optimum speed, acceleration, and deceleration? As many as 800 robots can be deployed at any one time on the warehouse floor, although in practice, the numbers tend to be kept lower to avoid traffic jams. When their batteries run low, the robots are instructed to find the nearest charging station. Since robots took over the warehouses, changes have been implemented to improve their working conditions. Skylights, for instance, are now covered up, so the robot's sensors aren't confused by glare. Air conditioning units that blow downwards in areas where humans work now blow sideways so as not to topple delicate items from the tops of moving shelves. To navigate, a camera on the robot's undercarriage reads QR codes embedded in the floor, and individual sensors help the robot slow or swerve to avoid obstacles in their paths. Compared with these scurrying warehouse servants, some other robots working at Amazon look almost humdrum and conventional. The so-called Robo-Stow robotic arm, for instance, wouldn't look out of place in an old-school car factory, except it can lift a hefty 1,200 kilograms and manipulate shipping pallets to within 1/10 of a millimeter accuracy. There's also the labeling robots, nicknamed slam machines by human co-workers for their relentlessly percussive racket. These can label up to one package every second. And for a hint of what will happen in the coming years, Amazon recently purchased Canvas Technologies, a firm specializing in autonomous robotic carts. Just picture the most sci-fi drinks trolley you can imagine. Robots, of course, are only part of the story inside Amazon's smart warehouses. Even the company's most fervent futurists admit the notion of complete automation is a decade away, and even then probably won't happen. So what of the human side? Amazon's management techniques, in concert with all that automation, have made the business astonishingly lean and mean by historic standards. In 2016, it was estimated that by bringing everything in-house, as opposed to all the duplication inherent in a standard high street or shopping mall, Amazon requires only half the employees a traditional retailer might, per $10 million in sales. What are all these humans, hundreds of thousands across the world, actually doing then? Well, since Kiva and its robotic heirs took over, there's much less rushing around than there used to be. But there's still plenty of tasks requiring dexterity and problem solving. The two most common roles still done by humans are stowing and picking. When goods arrive at the fulfillment centers, they're stowed by humans onto shelves or pods to be collected later by the robots. The pickers then pick the specific item from the shelves when the robots come by, then send it on to be packed. Workers on the picking side are encouraged to work fast in order to maintain their so-called rate. If workers' rate falls below expectations, employees can be disciplined and ultimately sacked. According to one ex-employee, this rate can be challenging to fulfill. 120 items per hour when they started at the company, rising as high as 280 items per hour just 3 years later. Errors are also punished. According to the same ex-employee, workers were once permitted 1 error per 1,000 items, but now they're only allowed 1 per 2,200. The rates only get more challenging during Prime Day when sales on Amazon skyrocket. One way Amazon encourages workers to make rates is through gamification or making the whole thing into a game. So instead of a plain old-fashioned graph telling workers where their productivity stands in relation to the rate, workers instead play and compete on in-house games with names like Picks in Space, Mission Racer, or Castle Crafter. So essentially, the faster and more accurately employees pick stock, the faster their little pixelated car moves around the track. Other incentive schemes, such as in-house currency swag bucks, reward hard work with Amazon-branded merch such as water bottles or t-shirts. Amazon has regularly found itself in the firing line for its intense working practices. According to reports, as many as 14,000 serious injuries occurred at Amazon sites in 2019, a per-employee rate of nearly double the industry standard. Deaths are infrequent, but not unheard of. In the UK alone, during the 3 years to 2018, ambulances were called to Amazon warehouses 600 times. For its part, Amazon is keen to stress it invests tens of millions of dollars into worker safety awareness programs, but there's no denying injuries spike around Prime Day. So are Amazon's ultra-efficient warehouses ultimately a force for good? While COVID-19 laid waste to vast swathes of the conventional retail landscape, this year Amazon has been processing up to 40% more orders than expected. In the month leading up to March 23rd alone, toilet paper sales increased 186%, sales of cough medicine skyrocketed 862%, and children's vitamins went up 287%. Plainly, in a world where going to the shops can be a risky business, Amazon is fulfilling a need, and as such, ever greater numbers of people are relying on it. Will the robots steal our jobs then? The outlook is unclear, but within Amazon, it's plain to see that humans are still needed for many aspects of the work. And even if robots can one day stow or pick as fast as humans, dealing with mini crises like leaking paint pots on a fast-moving conveyor belt or identifying ripe bananas on site will still need the human touch for some time to come. Whatever the future brings, Amazon's new $40 million robotics lab just outside Boston, for instance, or its tantalizing patent for airship-like floating fulfillment centers, one thing can be guaranteed. As long as we're all buying, Amazon will keep on delivering.
मजा आ रहा है? मजा आ रहा है क्या? हाँ या ना? Yes or no? चलो लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द लास्ट पार्ट. लास्ट कंपनी जिसके बारे में हमें डिस्कशन करना, देखो पूरे 9 फॉरेन कंपनीज, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग. आज हम 3 कंपनी के बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे, कल एक 3 कंपनी के बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे, उसके बाद परसों फिर से और 3 कंपनियों के बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे. तो आने वाले 3 दिन में हमारा ये चैप्टर कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. काफ़ी बहुत आराम से, बहुत प्यार से, बहुत धीरे धीरे हमने ये चैप्टर देखा है. तो आने वाले 3 दिनों में चैप्टर खत्म कर लूँगा और फिर उसके बाद चौथे दिन से हम दूसरे चैप्टर की तरफ शुरुआत करेंगे. जैसे मैंने बताया कि ये एक प्योरली थियोरेटिकल सब्जेक्ट है, तो इसको पढ़ने में, ऑनलाइन पढ़ने में ज़्यादा दिक्कत या प्रॉब्लम किसी को भी नहीं आएगी. द नेक्स्ट कंपनी वी हैव टू टॉक अबाउट इज अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस. हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू नो अबाउट दिस कंपनी? ये कंपनी क्या काम करती है? अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस, इस कंपनी के बारे में कितने लोगों ने सुना है? हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू हैव हर्ड अबाउट अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस? How many of you have heard about American Express? अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस, इस कंपनी का नाम कितने लोगों ने सुना है? क्रेडिट कार्ड पता है क्या होता है? क्रेडिट कार्ड, डज एवरीवन नो व्हाट इज अ क्रेडिट कार्ड? क्रेडिट कार्ड क्या होता है पता है? Does everyone know what is a credit card? Does everyone know what is a credit card? क्रेडिट कार्ड क्या होता है ये पता है क्या सभी लोगों को? तो दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी क्रेडिट कार्ड कंपनी जो है वो है अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस. दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी क्रेडिट कंपनी, क्रेडिट गिविंग कंपनी, क्रेडिट कार्ड कंपनी जो है अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस है. इनकॉर्पोरेशन वे बैक इन 1850. This company was established, incorporated in the year 1850. Headquartered is in New York City of USA. Present head and CEO is Stephen Square. Chief Financial Officer is Jerry C. Campbell. American Express Company is an American multinational financial service corporation. The company is the best known for its credit card, charge card and traveler's check business. सबसे ज़्यादा फेमस ये क्रेडिट कंपनी है, पैसा देने, क्रेडिट पे उधार देने वाली कंपनी है. और सबसे ज़्यादा फेमस जो है ये अपने क्रेडिट कार्ड के लिए है. 2016 के अंदर जो है, इन 2016 क्रेडिट कार्ड यूजिंग द अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस नेटवर्क अकाउंटेड फॉर 22.9% of the total dollar volume credit and transaction in USA. पूरे यूएसए में जितना भी क्रेडिट का यानी उधार का बिजनेस चलता है, क्रेडिट कार्ड का परचेजिंग वगैरह स्वाइपिंग वगैरह जो होता है, उसका 23% परचेजिंग या क्रेडिट यूसेज पूरे डॉलर का पूरे यूएस इकोनॉमी में जितना है उसका 23% अकेला अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस कंपनी प्रोवाइड करता है. It operates in 175 countries with 2,300 offices across the world. It is the patent organization of three major companies: American Express Travel Related Services, American Express Bank Limited, and American Express Financial Advisors. American Express in India. In India, the company offers a wide range of travel, financial, and network service products. American Express established its first office in India in 1921 in Kolkata. Since then, it has grown to become leading travel company related to banking organizations in the country. American Express is considered as a pioneer in offering processes to keep centers in India. The company has set up global back office operations to leverage the skilled manpower available in India. हमारे इंडिया में हम आत्मनिर्भर भारत के हिसाब से रुपए कार्ड को ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. सबसे पहले सबसे पुरानी कार्ड कंपनी अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस है. हमारे इंडिया में नॉर्मली हम रुपए कार्ड, मास्ट्रो कार्ड इसका इस्तेमाल करते हैं. वीज़ा कार्ड, मास्ट्रो कार्ड और रुपए कार्ड. रुपए कार्ड तो इंडिया का प्लेटफॉर्म है, डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म पेमेंट का. मास्ट्रो कार्ड और वीज़ा कार्ड, अगर आपके पास एटीएम है तो एटीएम के ऊपर देखो, एक तो वीज़ा कार्ड रहेगा नहीं तो रुपए कार्ड रहेगा. बहुत से कम बैंकों का मास्ट्रो कार्ड है. तो ये जो तीनों डिजिटल पेमेंट नेटवर्क थे, मास्ट्रो और वीज़ा, इनके नंबर ऑफ कार्ड होल्डर्स ये अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस कार्ड के 4 गुना थे. अगर अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस कार्ड इतने थे तो वीज़ा और मास्ट्रो के कार्ड इतने थे. लेकिन ओवर द पीरियड इन्होंने क्या कहा, हमारे पास कार्ड नंबर ज़्यादा हो तो ज़रूरी नहीं. इन्होंने क्या है, क्रेडिट कार्ड बांटते गए. बहुत से लोग क्रेडिट कार्ड लिए, परचेजिंग करे और पैसे ही वापस दिए नहीं. तो इसमें क्या है, क्वालिटी खराब होने लगी. बहुत से लोग क्रेडिट कार्ड यूज़ करने लगे, क्रेडिट कार्ड का इस्तेमाल करके परचेजिंग करने लगे और बैंकों के पैसे जो है कंपनी के पैसे डुबाने लगे. अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस का काम ऐसा नहीं था. उन्होंने पहले से क्वालिटी बेस्ड काम किया, सभी चीज़ों पे इंस्पेक्शन करके ठीक करके ही काम किया. फिर धीरे धीरे 10 साल के बाद ये लोग यहाँ नीचे की तरफ आ गए और अकेले अमेरिकन एक्सप्रेस आज दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी कार्ड लेंडिंग या क्रेडिट रेटिंग कंपनी बन गई. American Express is considered as a pioneer of offshoring process to captive centers in India. The company is setting global back offices operations to leverage the skilled manpower available in India. American Express India Private Limited. This center handles accounting and financial process of American Express business around the world. American Express Global Service. The center provides support to the company's card financial services and travel related businesses in US and other countries. Company's history. American Express was started in the year 1850. And an express mail business in the New York. It was founded as a joint stock corporation by a merger of express companies owned by Henry Well and Company and William G. Fogg, Livingston Fogg and Company, and John Wells Butterfield and Company. Philosophy is the company is to be a leading provider of payment solutions worldwide. Mission to leverage our local and global expertise to be the leading provider of the payment solutions for the customers by delivering high quality innovations and world class products and services while maintaining the highest standards of governance and ethics. American product services include card products and non-card products, traveler check, etc. Then business and news, American Express is ranked 67th Fortune 500 companies. American Express ranked 88 world's largest corporation. American Express ranked 43rd on the world's best employer list 2019, and American Express Amex has added 6 lakh new merchants since 2017, right? So this is a small intro we have in our particular textbook. Let's have a quick look at the video. This is the last for today.
American Express, sometimes known as Amex, is a diversified global financial services company headquarters in New York City. The company is best known for its credit card, charge card, and traveler's checks business. The company's common stock trades on the New York Stock Exchange under their ticker symbol AXP. It is one of
American Express, the most prestigious of all the credit cards. Visa,
This is the last video for
MasterCard,
today.
everybody has those, but only a select few have American Express. Here, I'll prove it. In 2019, there were over 3.3 billion Visa cards out there, over 2 billion MasterCards, and only 114 million American Express cards. That is a big difference. There's 29 Visa cards and 17 MasterCards for every one American Express. And that's because they're not as concerned with volume. In fact, they do a lot of things differently. For example, Visa and MasterCard are issued by banks, whereas American Express handles most of that themselves. You can now get one from Bank of America and some other places, but 70 million of those cards were issued by them. Possibly the biggest difference is that they're not simply offering a charge card, they're offering something more. So maybe it's not even fair to compare their number of cards. As a premium brand, they're not as concerned with how many cards are issued, but rather how much money they make from each card. I think that might be the more telling number because it's significantly higher for American Express. That's because despite having fewer cards, American Express has higher revenue than Visa or MasterCard. It's actually higher than both of them combined. So though they're not as widely used, they have their own system in place that's working in a different way. They call it spend-centric, and I want to talk about it, but I also want to talk about the evolution of this company, because they didn't start by providing credit cards. They go back over 100 years before credit cards even really existed. The name is American Express. See, in the 1840s, express services were thought to be a promising new industry. And just so we're on the same page here, an express service is when you pay someone to transport something for you. Due to the pricing and the logistics, you would typically use it for smaller, more valuable things. Well, the first one in the US was founded in 1839, and by the 1840s, there were a bunch of them, notably located in higher population areas like New York City. In 1850, 3 of these bigger ones in New York decided competing with each other was becoming harmful, and they would all do so much better if they simply joined forces. There's some big names here. That's when Henry Wells, William Fargo, and John Butterfield combined their separate express companies into one larger one called American Express. Up until this point, all of the most populous cities in the country were in the east, mostly in the northeast, and logically those were the areas they served. But they actually formed American Express during the California Gold Rush. For the first time, people were making their way out west in big numbers, and San Francisco would soon become the first big city out there. Henry Wells and William Fargo, who were actually the first president and vice president of American Express, saw some opportunity there. This was their chance to offer their services in San Francisco before anyone else, and if the city kept growing, like it did, they would likely grow with it. Now, the rest of the company wasn't crazy about the idea. They thought it was too risky and American Express would be better off focusing on the eastern cities. The board of directors basically said that you two can go and do whatever you want, but we're gonna stay right here. And that's what happened. The two of them went out to San Francisco to start a separate company, and I think we all know how that eventually turned out. I think I should make this clear. They stayed with American Express as well, simultaneously running both companies.
Orchestration is a key element in every single high-end music production in the film or music industry. There are many elements that make a great musical piece: the melodies, the search for new sounds, the
Through the rest of the 1800s, American Express continued to grow, either merging with competitors or making deals with them as far as what territories that they would serve, making deals with the railroads and other transportation services. The Civil War was good for business because it meant everything had to be shipped everywhere. The point is, the cities were getting bigger, the population was growing, and American Express was able to set up a system that allowed them to take advantage of this rapidly growing demand. Henry Wells remained president until he retired in 1868. That's when William Fargo took over until he died in 1881. He was then replaced by his younger brother, James Fargo, which is actually the person thought to have gotten the company first involved in financial services. The year after he took over, American Express introduced their money order. It was intended to be a cheaper, safer, more accessible version of what the US Post Office had introduced almost 20 years earlier. They sold quite a bit of them, partially because there was a high immigrant population that was buying money orders to send money back to their families. Since it turned out to be so successful, they followed up on it 9 years later when they introduced their famous traveler's checks. I think the success of those played a part in them getting involved in the travel business a few years later. We can see here how they started by delivering stuff, but then slowly progressed into other somewhat related businesses. It was a good thing that they did too, because during World War I in 1918, the government took over everyone's express operations, and American Express was reduced to only banking and travel. So had they not made those moves, I'm pretty sure that that would have been the end of them. That's how they existed for the next few decades, a relatively smaller company, mostly known for their money orders and traveler's checks. But then in the 1950s, everything changed. Now, this was a time when credit cards were thought to be a promising new industry. Up until this point, there were no large-scale, widely accepted cards. In 1950, the Diners Club card practically changed the game. It was accepted by multiple entertainment providers and showed the potential for a product like this. It wasn't long before various banks across the country started introducing their own regional cards. 1958 is when American Express first entered the market with this purple travel and entertainment card. This thing got popular so quick, 500,000 people possessed it within its first 3 months. And I think we can say that this was the main reason that over the span of the 1960s, their income grew 10 times larger. And then the introduction of their famous green card and corporate cards helped propel them to that next level. American Express transformed into one of the most respected, valuable brands on the planet. They had a great slogan too, you've probably heard it. Don't leave home without it. It's nice and simple, and it practically became one of the most popular sayings of all time.
American Express card, don't leave home without it.
I mean, this credit card business helped them so much that over the next few decades, they were able to acquire all these other financial businesses. They've since sold them, but at one point they bought an insurance company and a brokerage firm. Today, my perception is that they're mostly focused on their gold and platinum cards. And I want to take a look at their platinum card because I think it's very representative of how they run their business. First,
so of course you know you can make money on YouTube, but did you know you can make money on YouTube without ever showing your face or recording a single video? In fact, I've personally used this to make over 30.
First off, it's called the Platinum Card. Platinum is a metal that's uncommon and valuable and flashy, much like American Express would like to be perceived. But beyond the name, this card costs $550 per year just to have it. Most cards don't cost anything. There is a cost, it's typically not this much. I say this is reflective of their business because they generate $4 billion a year from these card fees. It's a big part of their model. Another thing about the Platinum Card is there is no interest rate because the full balance has to be paid at the end of each month. The idea is, unlike the other providers, American Express actually wants you to pay your bill on time. For many of their cards, like the Platinum one, it's actually a requirement. Looking more into this card, card, you can earn 60,000 membership reward points after you use your new card to make $5,000 in purchases in your first 3 months. This is the core of their business. See, any seller who accepts a credit card has to pay for that ability to do it. When compared to Visa or MasterCard, American Express generally charges them a much higher rate. If you want to buy something from Walmart using your Visa card, that's typically cheaper for Walmart than if you were to use your American Express. Since Walmart has to pay them a comparatively high percentage of the transaction every time you use it, they want you to use it. The more you use your card, the more money American Express makes. So offering deals that motivate you to spend $5,000 in 3 months is reflective of their overall plan. This is where they make most of their money, by the way, and that's why it's called spend-centric. The obvious question here would be, why would these sellers even accept American Express then? Most people don't have them anyway, so why bother if it's gonna cost more? Well, that is happening sometimes. Historically, people have had difficulty finding places that'll accept it. Though today, I think it's better than it used to be. They say that in the US, they believe that it's accepted by just about as many merchants as Visa. And the reason that they're willing to accept it is sort of because of that prestige. See, the people with American Express cards tend to be comparatively wealthier. They have higher credit scores. I mean, why would you pay the $550 a year to have it if you don't plan on using it? Wealthier people tend to spend more money, so the advantage for Walmart or whoever the merchant is that it'll attract bigger spenders to their business. They'll be giving American Express a higher percentage of a larger bill, so it should work out for everybody. And then finally, the benefits. That's the big reason that people would want to get this platinum card. You already saw the rewards points. There's a ton of travel benefits, things involving Uber and Delta. It'll give you access to that airport lounge, and then the platinum card concierge. I'm not trying to sell this card, so I'm not going to go through everything, but for many people, those benefits outweigh that cost. Are you starting to see the system that's in place? How the different parts work with each other? I have to mention this too. Their highest, most prestigious card is the Centurion card, also known as the American Express Black Card. Just look at that thing. If you have one of these, you must have a lot of money because they are not easy to get. I think this takes things a little bit far, even for American Express. First off, they have to offer it to you. You can't just openly apply for it like almost every other credit card in the world. Nobody knows the exact criteria to get that invite, but I doubt you'll get it unless you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on one of your other American Express cards. Then once you get invited, you have to pay a $5,000 initiation fee to get it, and then a $2,500 fee every year to keep it. Obviously, you have to be very wealthy to get this card, and I just look at this as an extreme example of how American Express conducts their business. Let me know in the comments, do you have one of those black cards? Alright, you don't have to tell me that. Instead, I'll ask you, do you have any American Express card? And if you do, what has been your experience? Many of them cost more money, and I suspect are still a little less widely accepted, but do the benefits make it worth it? Maybe it's just that prestige of pulling out the American Express card that makes it all worth it. And then on the other end, for those of you who stick with the more basic Visa or MasterCard, what do you think of American Express? Is there anything I said in this video to make you want to make that transition, or are you perfectly fine with what you have? And any other thoughts about American Express and their 170 plus year history, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.
I hope now most of you know what is American Express and what kind of business they handle now. उम्मीद करता हूँ कि इस लेक्चर के बाद सभी लोगों को ये समझ गया होगा कि ये कंपनी क्या है और किस तरह का काम और बिजनेस करती है. मैं आपको अपनी पिछले महीने I hope entire today's discussion on the 3 companies of American Express, Apple, and also the later company Amazon is very much clear and interesting. I hope each one of you enjoyed today's basic lecture. I'll meet you tomorrow at the same time, 2 o'clock, with 3 more new companies, foreign companies. In this next 2 days, we'll be completing this particular chapter. That's all for today from me. Signing off today. Bye bye. Take care. Stay home and stay safe and do whatever you want to do, man. कल फिर से प्रोडक्शन का टेस्ट होगा, टेस्ट नंबर 2 ऑनलाइन जो कंडक्ट किया जाएगा. टाइमिंग विल बी आफ्टर the account lecture tomorrow morning, that is 11:30. So 11:30, 12:30 will be tomorrow's paper. Thank you so much.